Rage Against the Machine, AI Stay Away from People Management. With Anita Wilson, she is the CEO of Kaleidoscope Group. Anita will introduce herself and then go on with this amazing topic. So Anita, here is the stage for you.
After lunch, so that's always an advantage. So I hope you've had enough coffee to follow this really exciting topic, in my opinion. So when I came up with the title, I actually had forgotten that that was my title. I knew what I was going to talk about, but I had forgotten that this was my title. And a dear colleague commented on LinkedIn how great it was that I was building in rock band names into my presentations. And then I was wondering, why did I actually do that? Why did I'm not a particular fan of Rage Against the Machine, but I think it took me back to sort of the 90s, where I was a very avid snowboarder, and I was venting all my frustrations and my surplus teenage energy at sort of snowboarding club nights where Rage Against the Machine was obviously the type of music that was playing, and I was getting rid of my frustrations there. Nowadays I have to go and speak at professional conferences to vent my frustrations. And I think this is how I actually got to this title. If I remember correctly, the call for proposals was around November time, maybe, for Gala. And when I was looking up at what Gala was looking for on topics, and one of the topics was human resources and people management, I thought, okay, this is my chance, because just before then, did anyone hear about this hashtag lazy girl jobs by any chance? Mm-hmm. So this was the time when hashtag lazy girl jobs came out. And did you know that, for instance, content creators and translators are lazy girl jobs? So if you're ever wondering, what am I doing? There's obviously people who work a lot more than us, because, once I looked into the topic more and I realized, okay, this is just a great SEO hashtag, so that there's discussion and controversy going. And I started to dig deeper, and then I got into this rabbit hole of make sure or use ChatGPT to land a dream job that you're not even qualified for. And then I thought, oh, I'm responsible for recruiting in my organization, and does that now mean that I'm going to get lots of ChatGPT generated application letters when I have so little time, and I want to focus, and I want to get the right people, and these people are all going to cheat me by having all of this generated by AI. And so I was being very selfish, and I thought, no, I'm going to dig deeper, and I'll dig deeper, and I'll share it with all of you, and hopefully get lots of discussion going, and also learn from your experiences. And yeah, this is how I got to today's topic. Just for a quick background, so you also can sort of see what company I'm responsible for and what company size, because I do think it's a really important topic also to be talking about when we talk about AI in any sort of process or in any sort of organization. How large is the organization actually, and what are the organization's time and also financial resources even to make any of these AI supported solutions possible within the organization. So we are currently 3 companies, because we've just acquired a third small one and started a company in Germany. We are always sort of around the 70 employee mark. So we're not huge, but we're big enough that I'm really busy with recruiting, and I'm really busy with people management topics. We also have certain ISO certifications that, of course, also have impact on how we manage our people and how we organize ourselves and how our processes are, how our people learn, how they have to further their education. And then there's my background. I'm not a translator. I have a background in English literature and language and in journalism. And later on in my very early career, I also gained a certificate in training practice in the UK. So you see, I am not an HR professional. I am not an educated people manager. But I think this reflects probably also a lot of people in this room. When you're the CEO, the founder, or in a managerial position in an LSP, you suddenly become responsible for so many things that when you started your education, you never even knew existed, or you never even knew that you were going to come across them. For instance, I also have financial and controlling responsibility in my company, and if you told my 15-year-old self that this is what I was going to do later on, and I would be budgeting and working with numbers, I would have not believed you. And as a CEO, of course, I am responsible for a lot of things. So we're two CEOs, and we're very strict in separating our responsibilities to make sure that people know who to go to with what subject. But I'm looking after our language services department. I'm responsible for marketing. As I said, our corporate services, so anything from legal to finance, but also, and most importantly for today, for our employee success department. So we're not talking about human resources because we wanted to get away from this quite, I don't know, I don't like to say old-fashioned, but this idea of humans as resources, and wanted to make sure, we wanted to express that these are all people that we need for the entire success of the organization. And when I talk about employee experience, or really what I'm responsible for is to create an employee experience really from recruiting straight through to onboarding, training and development, of course the ongoing management of people, and in the rare occasions, and I really can honestly and proudly say that in the rare occasions that people do leave us, also in the offboarding process. I don't do all of this all by myself. Of course, I have a great team who support me, but it's sort of my overall responsibility and what also I want to cover today. So I'd like to move on to Slido, and unfortunately the embedded Slido in the PowerPoints don't work here. But if you want to, the way it works is if you scan this code, you should get straight to this Slido poll. If you don't want to scan it, you can go to slido.com and enter this number. We'll leave it up just until people have had a chance to get on it, because I want to have a bit more of an idea who I'm talking to today. Okay, I think there's always, I've had this before in other rooms, that there's an issue with the internet, right? And it takes a long time to get onto these polling sites. Is it working? And then you can, if you could change the screen, please, and launch the first question. Yeah. So, in which areas of people management have you had experienced AI, either as the recipient, or you have a suspicion that you were, I don't know, there was a CV screening service, for instance, or something like that, or maybe you already used something in your organization? Okay, still moving, still moving. No problem. It's 3783. You got it? Ah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So quite a lot of you say we don't use AI. And I will very honestly tell you Same here. Ongoing training and development, the recruitment process. What I'm super interested in is the person, or maybe persons, who said assessment or feedback processes, because this is one that I've not quite got my head round yet on how to use it there. Okay, thank you. So we can go back to the presentation. So why AI in people management? I read a lot of reports and a lot of research in preparation, and mostly the main complaint in the HR processes or management processes was the amount of administrative tasks surrounded by these processes. So yes, if you can get a machine to help you with that, sounds great. The other one was to get faster responses to candidates. That's something that I struggle with a lot as well. When you get a lot of applications in, how do you deal with that? Because you want to create a great first impression, of course, as a company. We also had to have a reliable data source for reviewing processes. So, for instance, your outcome of recruiting efforts. So, what are the what makes a good candidate? Where did we get good candidates from? What sort of campaigns brought us really great applications versus other campaigns that maybe didn't? To filter out unsuitable applications fast, it's also completely understandable, of course. To have a more objective selection process. I have a very strong opinion on that, which I'll get to in my next slide. Help everyone focus on the actual time with people. That's what we want our management to do, right? We want them to actually spend their time not filling in forms or doing some sort of written assessments. We actually want them to be out there, speaking to people, helping them develop, helping them to get better. And also automated development and training. I was in an e-learning session, I don't know if any one of you was there as well, where this was one of the points also in the keynote, of course. It was all about AI might be a great way of getting very tailored training and development opportunities for people. But getting on to the reality of things, I don't know if maybe there's a battery issue, but there's always sort of a delay here. CV screening is highly problematic. Have you heard of this before? Or I don't think anyone was, although some people said in the recruitment process. So CV screening is really getting your pool in of applications and then having some sort of trained model, screen CVs for the best candidates, and only the best candidates are being presented to you. There's a really big issue with that because, as we already, I'm sure you all know, there's large bias in trained models. Why is that? Because the data is biased, because the data comes from the world we live in. And I was in the keynote just before lunch, maybe some of you were there as well, where somebody said, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about bias in LLMs and hearing about bias in AI. I have a slightly different opinion. I am sick and tired of hearing that this is what our world is like, and that's why we should perpetuate this on a regular basis, because aren't we the ones that could make the difference and to get away from this model? And I think this is only if you have human interference in this process. The other thing that kind of actually triggered me to give this presentation was then you end up machine reading, machine-generated applications. That seems such a strange thing to me that it almost seems we could just forget about that step whatsoever and start speaking to the persons who would like to work in the company straight away, right? Yeah, then in development, sorry, I'll go back one. In development, I would say that that does excite me. But I think it will very much depend on how people are willing to help in this process and in the organization. For instance, when we talk about saving time, so there's one process, one HR process in my company that I get the most questions on. And no matter what I do, no matter how I change, how this is in our knowledge base, no matter how many one-to-one training sessions I do, people always get it wrong and always ask me a question. That's travel expense forms. I don't know if anyone can sympathize with me here. So the idea that maybe my employees could go into our knowledge base and just say, oh, please, how does it work again with expense forms? And somehow they would get this done and then also get automatic help with creating a complete, factually correct and expense form that then I can put onto payroll or pass on to payroll. That actually is exciting to me, I know. But that would save me quite a lot of things, and it's little things like knowing company processes that I think could be a real winner there. The ongoing management and coaching, I would like, so the reason I'm rushing through is, oh my goodness, I've only got 5 minutes left, that this is something that I would like to discuss, especially if somebody said that they're using AI for assessment. Maybe you could raise your hand later and tell us a little bit about this. But once again, I don't think that AI is going to solve the problem of our managers not spending enough time with their people, because they just find other admin tasks or other tasks to keep them busy with. Another big issue is, of course, this needs skilled HR staff. So when we say that this is going to change everything and everyone is going to I don't know, from everyone's going to lose their job to people will just have to have different skills. We're just not there yet. The majority of staff doesn't have that skill and that knowledge even to use these systems. Rollouts are quite bumpy, and then at least here in Europe we have major issues with data security, of course, around the subject, because HR data is highly sensitive data. This is about people's skills, about their previous experiences. You can't just harvest that data. Cybersecurity being another one. I mean, if you're in an LSP, we're still, even the really large LSP compared to major corporations are still fairly small companies, and of course they will have good cybersecurity, but is it enough? The other thing is, do you have enough data even to train any of these machine learning systems? Because I certainly don't. We don't have enough recruitment data that I could even train a machine to then say, this is Anita's decision tree when she looks for somebody new. I wonder if there's a solution out there for this. I'm just going to skip through this. I'm really sorry. I just want to really leave you with this slide, because almost as a total counteracting this whole thing about, or the worry about, are we not using AI too much? Shouldn't we use AI also in recruitment? Shouldn't we do? I always say no. What I want to do is I want to create tangible employee experiences, because in the end, AI could find me the best candidate if nobody in my team wants to work with this person because they're just not a nice person, or they're just not a cultural fit for our company. Then that person is probably going to be very unhappy in the organization and simply won't stay, or others will leave because of that person. So we're very specifically counteracting this. So we have our own internal conference, and what we've started giving our employees as conference presents are books, and you can't imagine how much appreciative people are. And they say, this is so great, I can hold a book in my hand, it's so nice. So we're kind of trying to go completely back the way, I guess. I write a personalized birthday card to every single employee in the company for their birthday, and they get a little chocolate with it, and they get a voucher with it, of course, as well. But it's this, and of course now for 70 people, that's quite a lot of work, but I love doing it, and I always try and put something personal in, just so that they know, okay, Anita listens to me when I tell her something, or when I tell her about plans I have, or something about my family. I also noticed that seeing this blown up, this plant desperately needs water. Sorry. I'm really much better at looking after people than I am after plants. What we do is we start also at the beginning. So instead of saying we can't find good interns and universities aren't good at giving us good interns, we're getting students into our office. We make big events where students come. We give them a lot of information about what different job roles there are, what skills do you need. So just to be proactive and to meet us in person, because that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember an AI-generated response to an application they sent in to us. They're going to remember meeting the team, meeting the people who actually do this. And I think we'll skip the next slide. But I think one thing that I wanted to leave with you before we have a minute or so for questions is it's not quite true that I don't use AI, because if we say AI is any sort of system that uses algorithms and data science, then I would maybe say LinkedIn is one of those as well. And I wanted to share my last recruitment campaign with you, because what I try and do is I actively try to network via LinkedIn and really see that the things I write get out to a very widespread audience. And so the last project management role that I was recruiting for, which is not long ago, maybe only 2 or 3 months ago, I only recruited via this one post on LinkedIn. And I got, and this maybe sounds crazy, I only got, I think, 7 or 8 applications, but I had to choose between 7 top candidates, because they were from my network, or it was recommended from someone in my network to the person to say, hey, I think you would really like it in that company, apply. And then it was actually really hard to pick, and that for me was such a success. I did not need to spend 3 months' salaries on a recruiter for this one position. I didn't pay anything on ads. It wasn't even a LinkedIn recruitment ad. It was just a simple post. So I think this for me then was it was almost thought-provoking to think, okay, maybe if I invested a little bit more, what else could I maybe do? What else is there where I could really gain benefit in my recruiting and my people management? So with that, I would just like to see, let's keep people management human, and I'm really interested to see what you have to say on the subject.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.